from the government of Scottish Secretary Douglas Alexander, a key figure in the governments of Tony Blair, Gordon Brown and now Keir Starmer. He says we're living through serious times, but with serious leadership in Downing Street. James Cartledge is the Conservatives' Shadow Defence Secretary, a former mortgage broker. He entered Parliament in 2015. He served as Courts Minister under Boris Johnson, but resigned in 2022 in protest at his behaviour. Jo Grady became the leader of the University and College Union in 2019. The daughter of a coal miner from West Yorkshire, she says attempts to block Andy Burnham's return to Westminster make Keir Starmer look weak and scared. And Konstantin Kisin is a podcaster, satirist and political commentator who's been described as an anti-woke libertarian. He says Reform UK offer the best hope for the country at the next election.
Who should Keir Starmer prioritise cozying up to? Donald Trump or Xi Jinping?
Well, look, I think...
Konstantin, so Steve's question is a kind of either-or, Donald Trump or China. Is that how you see it?
No, if we were a serious country, we'd be cozying up to everybody. It doesn't mean we would go into with our eyes closed and ignore the fact that China is a communist dictatorship. But we are going to trade with China. We're going to trade with other countries in the world. And by the way, on the spying point, all the major powers in the world spy on each other. Part of the thing. We should just get better at spying and defending ourselves against Chinese spying. That's my view. But in terms of what we're actually, let's just talk about what we're actually talking about here. The reason we're having this conversation is, of course, the American administration went to Davos and said something that many sensible people across Europe have been saying for a very long time, which is that Europe and Britain, unfortunately, are engaged in the process of what they call civilizational erasure. We are making ourselves weaker. We are making ourselves militarily weaker. We're making ourselves poorer. We are at a point in this country very close to the point where we can't produce our own steel anymore, virgin steel, which you kind of need if you're going to have a military and if you're going to contribute to things like the war in Ukraine. And what happened is European and some British leaders got their knickers in a twist about that fair, if undiplomatically stated criticism, and they decided to run to communist China because President Trump really offended them. This is such, I mean, I have seen more grown-up behavior in a nursery. It's absurd. The United States is the most powerful country in the world. We speak the same language. We share a culture. We share a history. We share an ethnicity, for God's sake. We watch each other's TV shows. We listen to each other's music. We watch each other's stand-up comedy. We are connected. These are the most powerful allies we could possibly have. And all they're saying to us and to Europe is be better allies, be stronger, be more self-reliant, produce our own energy. That is what we should be doing, instead of worrying about which superpower we're going to be a lapdog to.
James.
It's really important we trade with China. China's our fourth largest trading partner, but geography still matters in trade. And actually, the closest large trading bloc is not the United States with 18% of the trade, but the European Union with more than 38% of our trade across the United Kingdom.
Yes, except Europe is declining. Europe is now something like 9% of the world's GDP. I'm not anti-Europe. I think we should have a positive relationship with Europe.
Do you accept geography matters in terms of trade?
Of course geography matters. What I'm saying is that market is declining.
Our largest power economically is the European Union.
Yes.
That might be ideologically inconvenient, but it's a fact.
Why is it ideology? I voted Remain at the referendum. Stop arguing about ideology. It's a matter of fact. Europe is declining as a market. The United States is the most powerful country in the world. We have to be allied with them. That doesn't mean we have to be nasty to the Europeans, although I wouldn't mind if they didn't send us so many boats with illegal immigrants on them.
How can anyone think Reform are a party of change when they only appear to be a care home for old Tories?
Well, I think it's clear where you stand on the issue, Simon. Konstantin, care home for old Tories.
Well, it's interesting. You introduced me as a Reform supporter, which I'm not. I was asked a question about which party seems to be looking to address the issues that I care about. That is, of all the parties on offer, Reform is doing more of that at the moment.
I was just quoting you, actually, Konstantin, saying you said they offer the best hope for the country in the next election.
I've never said that. I've never said that.
It's
not to say I disagree with it, but we're so far away from the next election. How can you know which party offers the best hope? They are talking about the issues that are important. They're talking about net zero. They're talking about economic stagnation. They have a sensible understanding of the transatlantic relationship. I'm in favour of all that. If Keir Starmer comes out as being pro-dealing with illegal immigration, which he isn't, if he comes out against net zero, which he isn't, I will vote for him in a heartbeat, and I will vote for any other party. I'm not a party person. I care about the country. Now, Now, as to your question, I think you're talking, of course, about the defections from the Conservatives to Reform. Have Reform had a good transfer window, essentially, is your question. Mixed bag. You know, they've signed a couple of duds, in my opinion. They've also got a couple
who?
of... Well, let's, you know...
Come on, Konstantin. I mean, listen, if we've learned anything so far, we're only 50 minutes in, is you don't hold back.
I do not hold back.
Come on.
Look,
who are you talking about?
Not the last time, the penultimate time, previous time, or whatever, the 2 times before I was on Question Time, I remember arguing with Jake Berry, who was then a Conservative minister, who was telling me that net zero is brilliant and wonderful. He's now a member of Reform, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. However, if you look at Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, we had Robert Jenrick on my show yesterday, that episode will go out on Sunday. Very impressive people in many ways. And Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick are people who resigned or were forced out from the Conservative government as ministers precisely for trying to do the sorts of things that Reform voters want, particularly dealing with illegal immigration and mass immigration. They were forced out. I mean, Suella Braverman, when she was on our show, said, you know, I said to her, it must have been the civil service that hampered you in this process. She said it was not the civil service, it was Rishi Sunak. So what happened under the Conservative government is they have a portion of the current Conservative party who are people who are very compatible with Reform. They are all going to move over to Reform, and Reform have to take them in because they have to salvage what they can from the corpse of the Conservative Party to be able to win the next election.
I think a lot of the Tories who defected to the Reform Party were always perhaps racist and wanted to push an agenda that was disgusting, frankly, but they've just found a party that they could do it with. I honestly think general consensus, particularly amongst young people, is that we've lost our humanitarianism, and the only party that is showing any semblance of that is Green at the minute, frankly. And we're so fixated on the economy, on wealth, on so many other things, but we're just neglecting the fact that we are all humans and that we are not looking after one another. And none of Labour, Tories, Reform, none of you offer that security, particularly to young people who are so exasperated with just generally the state of the world and how we are treating each other.
OK. Listen, they're not here to defend themselves, but I expect the Conservatives you refer to would deny that they are racist and would take issue with that. Yeah. Yes, Konstantin.
Can I make just a couple of points? First of all, the gentleman mentioned that, you know, the Conservative Party need to tend to the centre ground. They tended very well to the centre ground, which is why they got thrashed in the last election, losing millions of votes to Reform and millions more votes to people who simply didn't come out and vote at all. So Rory Stewart is not going to save the Conservative Party, I'm afraid. As for, you know, I'm not in the business of giving the Labour Party free advice, but I will give some, and perhaps as an immigrant myself and someone who voted Remain at the referendum, I can say this without being shouted down. The attempt to paint your political opponents as being intolerant and bigoted is something that never worked, but people tried it around the referendum. You called half the country racist, that didn't work. Then you called people racist again, that didn't work. The Reform Party, like every other party, has a mixture of people within it. It has a man in it at a senior position called Zia Youssef. Their candidate for the mayor of London is a Muslim. I mean, what are you talking about? All of this politics of division that you talk about is what you did to this country. Let me finish. This is what you did to this country. Under your government, under the Blair government, you brought more people into this country in 10 years than had come between 1066 and the Battle of Hastings and 1950. You brought more people into this country in 10 years than had come in a millennium. And then the Conservative government came in and repeated this and went further. When I came to Britain in 1996, 55,000 people a year net came to this country legally. Today, that is the number of people who come here illegally every year. That is what you've done to this country. So when you talk about the politics of polarization, you did this to this country, you created it, and you're going to reap the whirlwind of the next election.
Let me answer you, Konstantin. Because Konstantin, we have a fundamentally different view.
Clearly.
So Rishi Sunak is no political friend of mine. He was the Conservative leader of the country, as you know. When Fraser Nelson put it to you that Rishi Sunak is absolutely English,
I said he's
what
British.
did you reply?
I said he's British.
You said he's a brown Hindu.
No, that's not what I said. I said
English?
he's British. I said he's
How
British,
is he English?
just like me. I'm not English.
Those are the words you used.
What I said
we can hear the code.
There's a difference between
a
British...
brown Hindu.
May I be allowed to say what I said? There's a difference between saying you're English and you're British. I am British. My children born in this country are not English, but they're British, and that is the distinction I made.
So Rishi Sunak is not English?
No, I don't think he is. I think he's British. He's a
I respectfully disagree. If
you actually listen
to the Prime Minister,
if you listen to Rishi Sunak himself, he said prior to being elected as Prime Minister that he identifies as a British Indian.
I can hear the quote.
So I'm quoting him. Well, you've clearly got a different
What's
ability.
What's his colour got to do with it?
It's not about his colour.
You
he
said
himself
Hindu.
Yes, he's a British Indian. Yes, he's a British Indian.
So why did you mention his colour?
I'm glad you came here with prepared sound bites, but they don't work anymore.
Why did you mention his colour?
Because I'm trying to make the point that he's a British Indian, which is what he is, just like I'm of Russian descent in this country and I'm British. It's a very simple point.
I can read the code.
Well done.
I'm going to move on, take another question. Labour's committed to net zero by 2050.
Yes, and historically there has been a bipartisan consensus, and I think that's something of which the country should be proud.
Do you support the government's efforts to reach net zero by 2050, broadly?
I mean, it's such a difficult thing to say yes or no for something like that. Probably yes, but it's not as simple as just saying net zero bad or good. It needs to be reasonable and it needs to be controlled. It can't just be something that we cut off all fossil fuels and just expect it to carry on and not affect anyone badly.
Constantine.
Can I just first of all ask Douglas and James, what percentage of global carbon emissions is Britain responsible for?
Historically or in present
Currently.
terms? About 1%?
About 1%.
1%. So if we reduce our carbon emissions to zero and destroy our economy even more than we already have, we will reduce global carbon emissions by 1%. That's what we're talking about. Now, that's what we're talking about, right? And the promise of net zero was, well, it doesn't matter that it's 1% because Britain is a global leader. We will inspire the world if we destroy our industry and hand it over to China, who's going to make the same things that we still need but dirtier, and then we ship them back here on ships that use the dirtiest fuel imaginable. If we do that, the Chinese will be inspired to commit industrial suicide as well. The Chinese clearly are not as stupid as our leaders, so they haven't committed industrial suicide. That is what net zero has done. We have the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world. That means we basically cannot make anything in this country anymore. And we will not be able to make anything in this country anymore until we let go of this ridiculous idea that we will inspire other people to jump off a cliff like lemmings, because we did. It doesn't work. It's not going to deliver prosperity. And James talks about we need a strong economy and we need net zero. Those two things are incompatible. You can't have both. So either you choose to make your people prosperous, or you choose to pursue. If that's not what you said, then forgive me. I thought what you said is we need both of those things, and I'm saying we can't have both of those things. We're going to have to abandon completely the idea of net zero. We can definitely continue to invest in new technology, and we should be pursuing newer, cleaner, cheaper forms of energy. But the number one priority of government policy going forward should be to deliver the cheapest possible, reliable, abundant energy that we can, so that A, our industry can thrive, and B, so that you are not paying ridiculous electricity and gas prices, because we have some of the highest energy prices for consumers in the world as well. Net zero is industrial suicide, and we've been committing it for far too long, and it has to end.
Yeah.
Very quick
let's
question.
let Constantine-
Very quick question, if I may. If this is a global issue, why do we have the highest industrial energy prices in the world?
Because Europe's gas and oil prices are significantly higher than the United States.
But why don't they have higher gas prices? Why are we the worst at this?
Sorry?
Why do we have the highest? We in Britain have the highest. Well, even though we've got gas in the North Sea that we could be producing and employing your constituents.
Well, partly because we didn't build the power stations under James's government that were promised by Nick Clegg and others in terms of...
Power stations don't produce gas, they consume gas.
No, but they produce electricity, and the economy's moving towards electrics, not least electric vehicles.
We're not producing our own energy.
This is why I said you guys should be in Parliament.
In reference to you've discussed banning social media for under-16s, and you've touched on artificial intelligence, and we've seen in this month of January with XAI and Grok, and it's disgusting, frankly, undressing of women and the damage it's done in that regard. Do you think that there needs to be greater safeguards in relation to artificial intelligence? And in fact, do you think this ban should be extended to under-16s in regards to artificial intelligence?
What, not allowing under-16s to access AI? Constantine? on both things?
I think actually,
AI?
surprisingly, a lot of sense has been spoken on this so far. My wife has become, in relation to our son, a complete screen Nazi. He hasn't seen a tablet or a phone, and I don't think will for some time.
How old is your son?
My son is about to be 4, but I don't think he'll be seeing those things for ages. I'd be in favor of banning phones from schools. I think there's plenty of evidence now, as Douglas says, that this has been an experiment designed by addiction specialists that has been unleashed on vulnerable people, which is what all children are in that respect. I think the evidence is very clear that if you are a parent that takes a phone away from a child, they react as an addict would to having the drug withdrawn. That is the level of addiction it's causing. So I think it is a very serious issue. And by the way, I agree about, there's obviously terrible content that gets shown to people on all kinds of platforms. And that's an issue, but that isn't the only damage that's being done. Even when they're engaging with relatively innocuous content, the addictiveness of it, even when you're looking at normal things for 10 hours a day because you can't stop, that's not a good thing. So absolutely, I would ban phones in schools, and I'd actually start there because of the impact that's having. And then social media, the issue with this is how do you implement it? Because then it means you have to get every single person to verify their identity, and there's privacy issues to do with that. And of course, globally, there are people who would have to verify their identity. If you're a freedom activist in Iran, you've got to submit your passport to Facebook or X, and now you get hacked, and now you get exposed. There's a lot to do with the implementation of this. But the broad thrust of it, absolutely ban phones from schools. And social media is not good for kids. We know that now, and we've got to be sensible about it.
And what about this point about AI? Because you're taking it much broader, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I don't know that... Look, children should be getting supervised internet access. It should be supervised. And I think the one thing I would say as well is we've discussed the failures of government all night tonight, and I don't think that's likely to change in the next couple of years. So as parents, I think what we should actually be doing is taking way more responsibility and saying, I, as a parent, am going to design the way that my children interact with the internet in a way that is going to be good for them, because they will need to. I mean, AI is a powerful tool, and they need to learn how to use it, not least because when we're older, they'll be able to show us what to do on the internet. So we need to have our children be able to use the technology, but I think there's such a thing as age appropriateness, and internet access has to be supervised for children under a certain age. I think it's a no-brainer, really.
And this is where the Conservative Party is at now.